hmm This Oregon law that protects the public? Yeah. Could you give me all the individuals in the employment of the state of Oregon? I emailed Oregon. It seems that this protecting of the public is not that important to the state and federal employees of the United States. It's as if you would you'd rather continue with your corruption, yes, than acknowledge the rights of what is known as the public. Yeah. Now, I happen to be a member of the public. Mhm. And there's this thought that I'm a wealthy individual, yes, that I'm going to sue for hundreds of billions, could be $1 trillion, approximately 5.5 million employees of every state in the federal government, yeah, because there's this refusal to acknowledge the protections of the public. I'll just add another 500,000 today. Now, for every individual that has any knowledge of the corruption of this county, yes, this state, every individual in each and every state has an obligation to protect the public. It doesn't matter if you're just in law enforcement as those 1.2 million individuals. Yes. It doesn't matter that you're a state employee. It doesn't matter if you're a federal employee. Every one of you has the obligation to protect the public. Yes. Now, I was just looking at what's known as the WIPO publication. Yeah. See, the readership of this actual document was intended for those mainly in the developing world. Yeah. Who are involved in the enforcement of IP rights, that's intellectual property rights. Now, there are what's known as judicial officers in both civil and criminal courts. Yes. They all have an obligation to protect the public. You can't say, well, the judge said made me do it. Yeah. If you have a badge on in any jail of the United States and you have knowledge of this, yeah, you're getting sued. Ouch. Then there are the actual lawyers. Yes, these are individuals that have gone to law school, or they've passed the bar of any state. Yes, or they had sworn that they would support the individual laws of the state. Yeah, federal laws, state and federal constitution, known as the United States Constitution. Yeah. Then there are the prosecutors, Mr. Nichols, Mr. Hawes. It seemed that the prosecuting attorneys didn't want to admit the evidence that I wasn't in Sequim. Yes. I wasn't in Jefferson County. Yes. And they wanted to put me away in a mental institution for wanting my rights enforced. Oh. Then there are law enforcement officers, the individuals that have actual arresting authority. Yes. That could be any park ranger. Yeah, Fish and Wildlife right now. Amtrak police. Who? It could be the Department of Transportation and those that have the arresting authority of any state of the United States, where they actually do have to protect the public. Now, then there's the customs officials, Homeland Security. Yes, the individuals employed in Border Support Patrol. Yeah. Well, they said I was just crazy. There's nothing wrong here. Obviously, we're doing everything just exactly as the law requires. Why don't you get me what is known as the constitutional free zone? Yeah, that two-thirds of the population that lives in on the border of the United States. See, somebody put border patrol stations 100 miles in from the actual border of the United States. Yes. And I thought that there was a certain kind of magnetism for those that are in Homeland Security. Yes. See, I know that you magnetized yourself on me, and I spent some time thinking about it. Now, there are those that are employees of Homeland Security that have to be on each and every individual because Homeland Security has to be the national law enforcement agency of the United States. Yeah. Could you get me the employees of Customs and Border Patrol? Inclusive of the individuals that work at the Black Ball Ferry? Yeah. I'm going to want to know who they are and I want to know if they know. Well, now my thought is there's 140,000 possible lawsuits just involving Homeland Security. Well, if you're an employee, now, excuse me, I'm going to want the actual communication system that is inclusive of the two-thirds of the population of the United States. Yeah. See, there's they call it the constitutional free zone where Homeland Security has the right to stop any American citizen, yes, within 100 miles of the actual border of the nation, yeah, and ask them to prove their identity as citizens of the United States. Now, I really like the, I really dislike, yeah, dislike. I dislike Homeland Security. Yes, the result of the terrorist attacks of September 11th of 2001, yes, was that in 2003 we started a new department of the United States government called Homeland Security. Yes. And there's always been some questions in my mind of exactly what took place that day. Phew. Now, Homeland Security had approximately $1 trillion over the last 15 years to set up their whole operation. Yes, they did. And I'd like to know every contractor employed in Homeland Security since 2003. Yeah. I'd like to know all the Wi-Fi that they use. Yes. Any and all broadcasting stations on any border patrol. Yes. All the fusion centers. Yes. And then there's that $6 million complex in Port Angeles, Washington, across the street from McDonald's. Has the local police department, sheriff's department, or any other employee of the city's government or county government been to that actual complex? Yes. Where they spent $6 million building something very, very special so that they could have some place to go when they weren't working on the border. You know, for every employee of Homeland Security that has any knowledge of this crime, I'm going to sue you. Yes. And I'm not just going to sue your employer, known as the Department of Homeland Security. I'm going to sue you. Now, you said I can't do it, but I think I can, and I'm mighty right now. Well, look at there. Across the street from McDonald's. Yeah. Do you have some sort of magnetism as a satellite system that covers? Well, why don't you get me every location that Homeland Security has ownership of? Yes, because when you started in 2003, we were spending approximately $100 billion a year. Yeah, fighting terrorism. Oh, and I thought that we built these locations throughout the United States that if there was a terrorist attack, yeah, you'd have it available to incarcerate those that are accused of terrorism. Now, I'm not just talking ICE. Why don't you get me the employees of that? So, I'm talking about every physical location that Homeland Security has any knowledge of. Yes, that could be used to detain any detainee. Yes, or house any employee. Now, we might have some of these deep underground military bunkers where Homeland Security said, well, we're just like the Air Force. Could you get me every German Shepherd? Oh, K9 unit. Ooh. Can you magnetize the hair of a dog? Yes. You know, there was the thought of the MRI machine. Yes, the magnetic resonance instrument or whatever it's called. Yeah. They're expensive. They cost about $250,000. But let's say you took in your German Shepherd, local vet, had to do some x-raying because there's some indigestion problems. Yes. Is there a biochip in each and every animal of Homeland Security so as to locate them if they ran off? Yeah. In fact, why don't you give me every animal that's been purchased from Homeland Security? Because, you know, I thought we had the really the influence, yes, of dogs. Now, a German Shepherd, yes, is probably, well, did did the chief of police shake hands with any employee of Homeland Security? Did they invite you to a tour of the new compound? Did they show you all the very special equipment that they purchased when they built the place? There's nothing underneath it, underneath McDonald's. No. See, they just recently rebuilt the place. So, is there well, I don't want you magnetizing my teeth. Yes. And since I have a very considerable amount of pain right here, yes. Why don't you get me the employees? I really don't think we need Homeland Security anymore. And my thought is we could just remove them from a department, yes, of the United States federal government. And then I'd ask the United States military to be actively involved in the fighting of terrorism. Now, I know that with 1.2 million Americans in active duty, yes, 800,000 in the reserves. Yeah, it could be that we don't need as many employees of the United States military. I mean, if we really looked at how to cut as much of the